Alright guys, so we've seen Bose lend their tuning to outside companies over the past year with their Sound by Bose label that they've been able to slap on a couple of different products. And so now I feel like it's actually a good time to kind of compare two of the true wireless earbuds that have had that label on their box. And one of those pairs is the Skullcandy Method 360 ANC, which I feel like was a huge boost, kind of having Skullcandy collaborate with Bose. And the same thing with Baseus. In fact, Baseus actually included a whole Inspire lineup that had tuning from Bose on headphones, clip-on style earbuds, and the XP1, which is the true wireless earbuds, and that is a pair that we're going to compare to the Method 360. So I figured let's go ahead and do this comparison because the Skullcandy Method 360 ANC and the Baseus XP1s are both around the same price tag, coming in at around $100. So we'll just say these are both a $100 pair of true wireless earbuds. And we're going to go ahead and start with the design of these. Now, the design of the cases couldn't be any different. Now, that's because the XP1s kind of have this like bland, like standard look to it. There's nothing special here. While the Method 360 case is it's huge. It's this long rectangular piece that slides. In fact, it's not really pocketable, especially compared to the XP1s. And I think they know this because they even put a little loop that's supposed to connect to like a bag or your belt loop or your keychain. So they know that the Method 360 is not as pocketable. Now, neither one of these cases support Qi wireless charging, which is kind of a letdown. So you are going to have to use the included USB-C cable to actually charge these. But speaking of the charging, battery life is also slightly different on both pairs. Now, with the Method 360 on the earbuds themselves, you're going to get around 11 hours, where with the Baseus XP1s, you're going to get around 8 hours. But with the charging case, the Skullcandy only gives you 40 hours total, where the Baseus is going to give you 45 hours total. So not a huge battery life difference between both of these, where the earbuds on the Skullcandies are going to give you slightly more, but with the case, the Baseus is going to give you slightly more that way. Now, the design of the earbuds are not as drastically different like it was on the cases. Both of them kind of share similar looks to Bose earbuds. Both do use a stem style design. And the XP1 is a little bit longer of a stem compared to the Method 360. I would say that the Method 360 is going to be better fit for people looking to use them in active lifestyles because it does have like this little grip that goes a little further up into your ear, and it just kind of helps it keep it in place. So I would use it more for running and maybe going to the gym. But if you're going to use them outdoors, I feel like the XP1 kind of has the advantage because it comes in with an IP67 rating, where the Method 360 only comes in with an IPX4. So you are getting much better dust protection and water protection with the XP1s. So again, there's an advantage to one in some cases, but there's an advantage to the other in other cases. Now, when it comes to the controls, both of these do use touch controls, and I am happy to say that both of these do give you control over everything. Now, when it comes to the active noise canceling itself, both of these are okay, but they are not Bose level noise canceling. So the Bose only applies to the sound and not really the noise canceling. Both of these pairs are going to be fine for traveling because it does a really good job of blocking out engine noises. It's just going to be when it comes to people talking or car horns, anything that has like that higher frequency, these do not do a good job of blocking those out. So again, nothing special when it comes to noise canceling. So do not look at these pairs specifically for that, although they're not bad for their $100 price tag. Now, the Method and the XP1s both have their own apps. You do get some EQ options with both of these. I do feel like the Baseus has some more features because it supports Dolby Audio. It also has Super Bass 3.0, which gives it a little bit better bass response, especially when listening to these at lower volumes. And I would say that the Baseus actually has more bass altogether. So that is definitely a characteristic of those that's going to stand out over the Skullcandies. But with all that, let's just go ahead and jump into the sound. Now, both of these, even though they are both tuned by Bose, they both have different characteristics, or at least in my opinion, to who they would be for. Like I said, I feel like the XP1s are going to be more for bass heads. They are a little bit more bass heavy. They're a little more boomy. They pull out the sub bass better than the Method 360s do. And just overall, I feel like it just has more impact. Now, that's not saying that the Method 360s don't have bass. It's just more tightened up. It's a faster response, and so for genres like metal, I feel like the Method 360 is better, where I feel like for genres like pop and hip-hop, I actually kind of prefer the XP1s. Again, I think it's because the Skullcandies have a cleaner sound, which is strange to say because Skullcandy's always kind of geared itself towards being a bass-heavy sounding product, but there's something a little more accurate in the Skullcandies that I prefer with most genres. But again, I feel like the XP1s are a slightly more fun earbud to listen to. So at the end of the day, I don't think you can go wrong with either. It's just listening preference wise. I would say if you're a bass head, just go ahead and go with the XP1s. But if you're somebody that's liking things a little bit tighter, a little bit more accurate, and a little bit more brighter and cleaner, go ahead and go with the Method 360s. Now, if you do like a more spacious sound, I will give the advantage to the XP1s here because it has that Dolby Audio spacious sound mode. Again, I'm not a huge fan of this for music, but it does open things up quite a bit. And with movies and TV shows, though, it sounds great. It definitely has a much wider sound to it. But again, at the end of the day, if it were up to me and I kind of had to pick between the two just for me, I would go with the Skullcandy Method 360. And that's mainly because I like a bright, clean sound. I do still like aggressive low end, and the Skullcandies are not, lacking when it comes to bass. It just does not have as much bass as the XP1s. But again, whatever is happening here, whatever Bose is doing, where they're lending their tuning out to these companies, I think it's really good for the consumer because I think both of these are great products. Both of these are great alternatives to not having to spend, $300 on a pair of Bose earbuds. Except for the fact that Bose did come out with the newer second-gen Quiet Comfort earbuds at, $179. So they're kind of bringing their price down, or at least trying to be a little bit more competitive with the way that the market is. Either way, again, both of these are excellent products, and I do like the fact that Bose is tuning other companies' products. And again, it just allows consumers to have cheaper alternatives to not having to buy Bose products themselves. And at the end of the day, Bose is still getting paid. These other companies are still getting paid. So it's kind of a win-win for all of the companies. And again, I think it's a win for consumers themselves. But guys, that's my comparison between the Skullcandy Method 360 ANC compared to the Baseus XP1s. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.